Hello, everybody. Welcome to the session on the webinar on COVID careers, the effect, the learning, and what the future looks like. And I would like to welcome the panelists and also the participants to take part in this. Fully be mindful and ask all these questions because we have 3 experts here. So just diving right into the session, E2E decided that at some point of time, we would like to give back to the community because the kind of network we have, the kind of people that we have on whom we are collaborating with, both on the culture through Culturalytics and on the learning and OD. And a lot of people have shared with us that they would like to share their knowledge with the rest of the team, with the world, with whomever, if we provide them a platform. So we decided that we would start this session on community learning. We did start tentatively in 2020, but then COVID decided that they are going to rule the roost, and then we had to drop the plan. So after a break, we have recommenced the learning again, and we are starting off with COVID careers, the effect, the learning, and what the future would look like. And all of us know many things are changing. The way we are working is changing. The way we are going to school is changing. The way we are interacting with people is changing. So let's see what the future holds. Yeah. And this webinar will focus on what is the economy that's going to take place post-pandemic, because things that we didn't know we could do is now happening. Things we had taken for granted has disappeared. So we are really going to look at what is the new economy going to look like, and the skills that we need to learn, because what worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. So we need to really look at what are the skills that we need to learn to thrive. I know of people, of teachers who have learned to use the online platform so that they can teach their students. We have heard many heart-rending stories of old teachers who are technologically challenged, who have actually overcome this. So just look at the kind of skills that the pandemic has brought for people to learn. And as organizations, what is it that we need to do to ensure that we stay engaged with the employees in the post-pandemic world? These are some of the questions or the thoughts that we will focus on during this webinar. And before we move into the webinar, let's do the housekeeping. I want to thank the team here. Sumant, Rekha, Luther, and Varun. We didn't get Varun's photo, so he said next time he'll put his photograph. Yeah, and the force behind the getting the organizing and everything done, sending the emails, designing, and making this happen. And with this, I would like to kind of again wrap it up before I hand it over to Bhaskar, that the key takeaways from this session is going to be on how do we actively engage with the team, how do we reskill, how do we sharpen our communication skills, because it's communicating face-to-face is very different from communicating when there is a technology piece in between the two of us, right? And how to consciously relook at leadership styles. What are the things that leaders need to do to change the way they are interacting with their team, and without compromising on the most precious things of integrity, values, and empathy. Yeah. So with this, I hand it over, and I would introduce the panel and then hand it over to Bhaskar. I'm very pleased to have Pankaj Lochan on the team here as one of the panelists. He's the Group CHRO of JSPL. He's going to be one of our eminent speakers today, and you can see Pankaj has over 2 decades of work experience, or life experience, I would say, and he's an MBA from IIMA, the most coveted school, and he has authored several books, and his current book is on the bestseller list, and it's a work of fiction. So it takes me great pleasure to introduce Pankaj. Then I have Bhaskar here. Bhaskar is again, he's a thought leader, he's a strategist. He, in his previous assignment, he led India in as the country head for the organization called Theorem. And currently he's floated his own company, 55 Plus, which is an e-commerce platform for the senior citizens. Okay, so and Bhaskar also sings quite well, and he does a lot of social work because he believes in paying it forward, and he lives in the beautiful city of Mysore. Then we have Ajay. Ajay again is currently with KPMG, and he's associate director with them. Uh, he's an expert in change management, in culture transformation, and leadership development, and he loves to write. In fact, he writes quite well on LinkedIn, so if you follow him there, you will get to read a lot about what his thoughts are. He plays squash and likes to swim as well. Okay, so with this I will hand it over to Bhaskar to take the discussion forward. Thank you so much, and please use the chat box to put your thoughts. We'll be monitoring the chat box, and you will all be on mute, so we will monitor the chat box for any relevant comments and questions. Bhaskar, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Devika. Thank you, everybody, for joining this afternoon. Friday afternoon is always tough to be on a Zoom meeting. But thank you for taking the time to join us. Hopefully, you will find this discussion, not only entertaining, but also, very informative as well. And of course, thank you to Pankaj Lochan and Ajay Venkatesh, our panelists today, or the experts on the panel today. And nice to talk to you guys again, Pankaj and Ajay. And let's kick it off, because we may be running short of time because we started late. But just to kick it off, both Pankaj and Ajay, I just wanted to get your both of your initial thoughts on what are the challenges and opportunities that you both feel that exist today that did not exist earlier because of COVID-19. So maybe Ajay can go first.
Thanks, Bhaskar. Thanks, Devika, for the intro. So I would want to start by saying that these are interesting times, is how I would want to put it. A lot of change, like Devika mentioned, in terms of in all aspects of life, be it professional or personal. So on the professional front, we are clearly seeing the nature of work changing. So a couple of things that I would want to highlight, and in the interest of time, I want to be very brief and crisp. Is one, the nature of work is definitely changing, and I can see it changing further as well as we move deeper into the next couple of years with a lot of automation and digitization that's already kicking in, and will just see more exponential rise in this space. The third part is the job design. So the way work is going to be done, or it's going to get done, is also going to see a huge change on the professional front. And with that, we will also see a lot of new ways of interactions and working styles evolve as we move ahead. So these are some of the changes, Bhaskar, that I see from a overall work front. In terms of, from a professional standpoint, what are some of the changes that we will see? And last but not the least, we will also see, and hopefully we will cover during this discussion, the kind of roles, new roles that possibly may come into existence, which we never thought of would be in demand today, for example. And a lot of roles which we never thought would probably not be there going forward, so become redundant, is what I want to say.
All right. Thanks, Ajay. Pankaj, any initial thoughts from you?
Thanks, Bhaskar. Thanks, Devika. We are all at the cusp of the formation of the new world. And that's the way I look at it. The way the world would be, the people, the teams, and the collaboration, we will all be very different. I think most importantly, acknowledging the new normal is the way I look at it. The new economy, the new enterprise, the new skill sets that will be required, the way we'll look at diversity and inclusion, how we'll embrace technology. I think these are some of the major points that I look at.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So, yeah. Pankaj, yeah, sorry, were you going to say something else?
No, that's yeah, the way I look at it. So I think acknowledging the new knowledge. Sorry, yeah. Please.
No, go ahead.
So I think the most important thing is that we all have to acknowledge the new normal, and do our bit to make the new world work. Right. Because it's going to be very different for all of us here.
Right. Thank you. So Ajay talked about new ways of doing things, or new ways of thinking itself is probably what's going to happen, and we'll touch upon it little as we go along. And then Pankaj, you talked about diversity and inclusion and how to embrace technology, etc. And you come from a non-IT industry. You come from a manufacturing industry, and now obviously everybody is talking about work from home, right? So everybody is working from home or work from home sometimes, but we kind of slip in working from home while you're working for home. But jokes apart, I just wanted to get your views on how the manufacturing industry has been able to cope with the both the pandemic era, or during the lockdown and so on, but also after the lockdown has been lifted. How has non-IT industries been able to cope with the limited number of people allowed to work from the factory, for example, right? So is the manufacturing industry still able to have?
We're still grappling with it. I mean, there are two parts to the problem. One is that those those functions or those services that could have worked from home are obviously working from home. It's like the service industry, the way it has coped up. But in the manufacturing industry, the challenges have been very different. The basic presence of the workforce at site has been a challenge. In the peak of the pandemic, people have become a constraint. And in the Indian industry landscape, I don't think people have ever been a constraint. India is a place, I think China also, and some of the Southeast Asian countries, where people were never a constraint. And your operations going down or slowing down because people are not there is something that we are grappling with for the first time. So I think our major challenges come from there. Safety, as in not in terms of accidents, but the basic safety of people at place, the infection, and how do you kind of redefine your SOPs to cope up with how you prevent infections at site. I think that has been the most major challenge. So the emergent thoughts, so the emergent, let's say the change of practices or the methods that we are changing are also, I kind of on the same line. It's all about prevention now. How do you prevent, infections? How do you make your workplace more airy? How to get away from air-conditioned and closely circulated atmosphere? I think these are some of the things that have been not so often discussed in these kind of webinars. But the manufacturing, the challenges are very different. It's not about how do you make your workforce work from home. Then that of course is given.
Right.
So I think these are my initial thoughts.
But also in my mind, Pankaj, what happened? Sorry, Ajay and Pankaj, both of you. When we are dealing with the manufacturing industry, where compliances are a big requirement. Even in the IT industry, of course, compliances are a big requirement. I come from an IT industry, so I'm more familiar with that part of the world. But in the non-IT world as well, let's say, take example of, let's say, quality compliances, right? So in a manufacturing industry, or when you're trying to get a new customer, they probably want to visit your factory and take a look at what kind of setup you have. I'm pretty sure those must have gotten disrupted. So in terms of how they want to measure you against their own standards of a supplier, for example.
Yes, I think not just with the customer, but with kind of all stakeholders. Things that used to happen and get done because of visits, or let's say the way you treat a stakeholder during the visit. Most importantly, the customer, as you said, those opportunities are not there. Because there, while there is a threat, there's also an opportunity that you can actually be working and showing the same kind of a value proposition through a KPI improvement, or through your the performance indicators that you're referring to. So I think somewhere the whole setup has become more meritocratic, I would say. Of course, the challenges do exist. I won't rule them out. But I think the point of view that I have here is that now the focus has shifted back to how do you create value in the real sense that it is visible to the stakeholder, irrespective of his presence at site. The evaluation of the value creation that you make should not be dependent. It should be, presence agnostic. I mean, whether you're there or not, you can see the value. I think so. That's a major opportunity I see.
Okay.
I don't know if it answered your question.
I'll give some examples, Bhaskar, if that's okay.
Sure, please.
Yeah. So to take on from where Pankaj left, is our visits or site visits decreasing per se? Maybe not as much as used to happen earlier, but however, it's not decreasing. So there are protocols which organizations are taking into consideration. For example, I recently had to go down and work at a large shipbuilding site. There was a requirement we needed to go, but that didn't deter me or neither the client to stop having me over, because there were certain interactions which were important and we needed to happen in a face-to-face environment. So what did we do then in that scenario? Normally, we would have had a normal interaction, etc. However, in this scenario, depending on the number of people, so these are certain areas that organizations need to be more mindful of as they slowly increase external folks to start coming into sites and allowing them to come in and have more interactions with their folks. So there are organizations which are taking protocols. For example, organizations have markers, etc., also kept in terms of, okay, in a conference room you need to sit with one seat away, and that's how the meetings are happening today. So has it reduced? Yes, it has. But has it been completely stopped, or is it a deterrent? Not really. International travel is a deterrent today because of the government guidelines, which once it opens up, you will see that things again start moving to the normal model of people from outside, experts coming in and studying. But the way of interacting will change. Organizations, what they need to do now as individuals, and people who are listening as well, as individuals, we need to be more mindful of when we are having an interaction with an external person who's coming from outside. We need to ensure that we as individuals as well as our teams are following the protocols that are laid down by the organizations towards what Pankaj mentioned as very key element is safety. So that's just my 2 bits.
No, thank you. So we kind of started talking about the physical visits as well. So I've always believed that whether you're a B2B business or a B2C business, ultimately all business are P2P, people to people and person to person, right? So I've always believed that there is a lot you can accomplish when you meet people face to face in person. So the digital can take you only that far, but I've always believed that. But coming back to the when we interact with people, and going back on what I was saying in terms of compliances, right? So
I think if I may, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I think there's something that I possibly missed out. And while you were talking about B2B, B2C, and then you said P2P, I agree with that. End of it, two businesses interacting with each other is V2V, value to value. What value you create and what value is perceived by the other stakeholder. And I think new mechanisms have emerged, as Venkatesh also said, that whether it is semi-physical or it is virtual, as one of the kind of participants was also mentioning on the chat box. Most importantly, you're focusing back on the value creation. You're saying that, look, I have this value on the table as a business interacting with another business, and it is that it cannot be deterred because you have not physically visited me. So I think more innovative methods are being found out to kind of express your value in numbers or kind of in performance metrics or in other ways. So I think it's all ushering into the new world, I would say, where you again start focusing back on value creation. So I think that's a short point, just to add to what you said.
No, that's a great point. I also like that V2V thing, value to value, because obviously has to be a value for both sides, right? So when you're trying to do a business with somebody else, but it's what I'm understanding from you is, the way we think about our business, the way we try to sell our products or services, probably has to undergo a quantitative and qualitative more. So I'm believing that it is true whether you're an IT company or a non-IT company, pharmaceutical company or whatever, it holds true for everybody.
Yes, true.
Right. So are there, now that we're talking about this, so have this, because of the pandemic and because of people working from home, are there skills that are, or roles that are changing rapidly that people have to adapt to very, very quickly rather than just top level? So what are some of the roles that you think that will undergo a sea change, or new roles being created, or skill sets being modified?
I think from a manufacturing standpoint, multi-skilling and part-time working are two realities that have come to the fore. Both were understood earlier, but I think, we say necessity is the mother of invention. I would say, it's also the mother of adoption, because, all these technologies, all these concepts existed, but we never really, implemented them to the hilt. And in this time, we have again started talking about multi-skilling, and in a big way. We're not talking about it, we're doing it. Why? Because we know that we have to operate with lesser number of people. We always knew that, but multi-skilling in manufacturing was never so focused upon as it has been since the first wave. I think as we grappled through the second wave, the whole it has only reinforced the whole belief that multi-skilling has to be done, and then IoT has to come in, machine learning has to come in, and all this has to get integrated with the IoTs, and then you have to do with lesser number of people to make the workplace more safe. Not just because you want to reduce number of people, but because you want to make the workforce more safe. So I think somewhere that part also is playing in the background, and that's a very basic difference between the services industry, which is working from home and doing equally good, and the manufacturing industry, which cannot work from home because there is a physical presence required. There are operators, there are technicians who are dealing with machines and equipments and interlocks and systems and all that. So I think that's my point there.
Correct. But when you talk about IoT, for example, so hopefully there may be a day when people are operating those machinery sitting at home. So they should be able to read what the what the machines are telling them digitally.
Yeah. So I would answer that very. So so core industries. Let's talk about the core manufacturing industry: cement, power, steel. All metals. There is a bit of stuff known as first level of automation, or automation level 1. These are very common acronyms used in the industry. Then there is a level 2 where it overrides the operator, right? And then there is a level 3 that you're talking about. Hardly 50% of the processes as we speak today in 2021 are even understood to be eligible for a level 3 automation, because anything going wrong has such serious capital damage ramifications that I'm sure a day would come where all this would be perfected, and control mechanisms or countermeasures would be put in place in situ while the error is occurring, or while the prevention methods would be put into place while the correction is being made. But as we speak today, with the advent of whatever technology we have seen till date, level 3 automation is currently possible in only 50% of the cases, that too with huge investment. So if I kind of agree that yes, we will give away that kind of investment, still you can do only with 50% of the level 3 automation, is what essentially you are referring to. That's known as level 3 automation, where it completely overrides the operator.
Got it.
So level 1 is where you've automated, a manual process has been automated. Level 2 is where the operator is being told what to do. The computer, the system is telling the operator what to do, and the operator acknowledges and get it done in a very short span of time or with less efforts. And level 3 is what you're referring to, where level 3 automation means it completely overrides the operator and the technician.
So with the whole, sorry, go ahead.
With now regular operations, still a higher percentage exists. In maintenance, no. It's only when the bearing comes out, it's only when the gearbox comes out, you'll know what exactly has to be repaired there.
Got it.
Because the kind of diagnostics that you think is possible is limited to the precincts of common control methods and monitoring methods. These are vibration, heat, pressure, temperature. These are the common things all across manufacturing industry. There's no. I have worked across so many of them that I now see a very common thing, and that's level 1, level 2, and level 3. And we all aspire to go to level 3, but then with the limitations that we have today, level 3 is only possible up to 50%.
Got it.
So that 50% is what I'm referring to. But I'm also referring to, while I speak about the 50%, I'm also referring to the other 50%, which will not happen at the moment. And that is what we are worried about.
Correct. Got it. So it's so much of talk around IoT, and I'm pretty sure this could be a topic for it by itself for another discussion on what kind of a role an IoT could be playing. But moving on to actually Ajay, how do you see these kind of roles, let's say from the IT perspective or IT industry perspective? What are the roles that you believe are changing or becoming redundant?
So nothing specific to IT. I would rather focus on the kind of roles that or other tasks or the work that we do that probably will not occur again. So put it very simply, any repetitive task that is being done today, any repetitive task, all of it will eventually, all of it may not be today, but in the next few years, you will already see that happening. We are already working, for example, we being in consulting, we're already working with clients on multiple automation areas. We are already seeing bots, and Pankaj will agree to this, that a lot of bots have now started flowing in into the system of organizations. Vendors are actually developing. Organizations have created a digital team, and most manufacturing or any other organization have started creating digital teams, including ours, which are actually focusing on which processes could probably be optimized, which processes could be automated, and bots could probably take over. So basically all the roles which were doing repetitive tasks. For example, let's say a finance individual who was probably doing some basic tax work on the system could be a role which may not be there in existence in the next few years. Front end roles, so any physical proximity role as well that you will see, where for example customer service executive, unless it's a real requirement, like in medical roles, proximity is required, you have no other option. But wherever there is an avoidance that's possible, you can see touch screens that's come in most areas. For example, you go to a restaurant today, you can order sitting there. For example, Chayos has their own apps where you can just go and order, and you can sit and they will come and deliver it to you. Earlier, you used to someone used to come, ask. All that is gone. So you see optimization of roles itself, in terms of probably if there are 10 people, now there are only 5 in the restaurants who are serving. So all customer centric roles will see a lot of transition change in the way they are going to operate. So a lot of digital, to your point, Bhaskar, now they will need to be skilled in terms of the way they need to start using tabs, tabloids, and other IO systems, where they will have to interact with their end consumers in probably with some physical distance maintenance, or with low move, higher proximity, where they maintain that, yet ensure that the service is not compromised for their customers. So roles which are going to be repetitive, roles which will have proximity, or will be the roles which will probably see elimination in the scope. And on the tech front, roles which have skills around software, automation, AI, ML. So AI, ML, are we seeing it to a large extent in our organizations today? It is gaining talk. I would say it's still at a gaining talk stage. We have not reached the AI and ML automation yet to the extent required. So it's gaining talk. So roles which will focus on developing AI and ML based systems in the IT sphere will be the ones which will see huge demand. You're already seeing that. And Pankaj, if you're hiring, you can actually state that and share that with us as well, in terms of which roles you're in IT, you're finding it really difficult to get in the organization. At least I am hearing a lot of my colleagues and friends saying that we are getting a lot of challenge in getting this, and a lot of price tag also increasing for these roles going forward.
No, thank you for that. And going back to what Devika also started off by saying that there are people who are forced to become digital aware or digital knowledgeable. Teachers and who had probably never embraced technology to that level. Their technology level probably, or awareness started and stopped with using an iPhone or a mobile phone, and that's about it. But they become a lot more savvy. And I think, I've also experienced that now in my business, where I'm dealing with people who are, 70, 80 years old, right? So when they have to place an order, I see that some of them require lots of hand-holding, not from the technology perspective, but they are still skeptical about buying something online, particularly when they want to, let's say, buy a wheelchair that is 25,000, 30,000 rupees. they're a little hesitant to buy that kind of or put that kind of money. But then technologically, they're very savvy. They know how to use digital wallets. They know how to use digital apps, payment apps, etc. It's been a pleasant surprise to me when people used to tell me earlier when I started off with the idea saying there is a huge digital gap, in terms of the seniors not knowing how to use technology. But I'm very pleasantly surprised, fortunately, that we haven't faced that digital, what do you call, non-awareness or ignorance doesn't seem to exist. They're all digitally aware, but I think they've all adapted. So, there is no reason why younger folks should not be able to adapt and adopt the digital technology, working from home or working remote. So that actually brings me to another question when we're talking about working from home, to both of you. Do you see there is a cultural shift or a work ethic shift in people when they are working from home versus working in the office? There's always going to be a difference. But in your minds, what are the things that you feel has shifted? Either culturally, when organizations have to inculcate a certain level of type of culture within their employees, it becomes difficult when they are all remote. Like Zomato is a good example, Swiggy is another example. But now those kind of examples are coming to, coming home closer, for the other types of industries as well. So just your thoughts on how do you feel that cultural shift is happening, or that kind of a work ethic shift, if at all there is one? Either of you can start off first.
Ajay, you want to go first?
Should I? Okay. So you want me to? Or you can. I mean, either is fine.
Yeah,
Ajay, you can go first.
Yeah.
We'll go
Okay,
with
I'll
alphabetical order. So,
okay, I'll start. So I will go a little technical in this. So just to make it more simple for everyone. So everybody is familiar with the hierarchy in our organizations. All our organizations have hierarchy. So there's a president, there's a VP, etc., and then it flows down. And I think all of us here in this group are in such an organization. With the pandemic coming in, you see that structure being there, but that's not the way we are operating. And I think all of us will agree on that. The mode of operation has changed more. It's not hierarchical anymore. It's more collaborative in nature. So which means cross-functional, work is happening. People are coming together. So earlier in HR parlance of, we need to shift to the network of teams model. We are actually seeing that in life happening with all of us. So that's one large shift. So clearly a lot of collaboration element needs to step in people. If you don't like it, it's going to be a challenge for you to work in a remote or a virtual environment, because that is the key of it. I'll just focus on the key aspects what I'm seeing today. The second element is the resilience element of it, that a lot of people have been talking. So what is this resilience element of it? We are sitting here and we're working for a long time. So it is not easy, because many times we are used to, and as Indians, and as general human beings, social creatures, right? We're not used to this video-based models. We're not video game people, we're not virtual people. We're social. So we want that interaction, and we crave for it. So it slowly starts building into you that, and the way you interact, sometimes you're not able to communicate. Let's say this is, if all of us are having a board meeting right now, imagine how it is. Pankaj speaking, Bhaskar speaking, I will put something. It's just chaotic. I mean, I'll give a fantastic example for those who are in society communities. So there is this society in Bombay. We have these society cooperatives, right? So we have this community MC meetings, managing committee meetings, and it's so chaotic in the virtual environment. Everybody just shouting and yelling at. So you need to have a lot of resilience in terms of the way you're operating. So collaboration and resilience are the two key things. And the third and most important, and I think this goes for everyone, but primarily for leaders, is the way you're able to manage the compassion element of how I'm managing my team while I'm interacting with people. Who am I giving? So is one person only going to talk all the time? And how smartly am I trying to get everyone involved in the conversation, yet not being direct and not being rude? in a virtual, because it's very easy. One slip of word, one slip of tongue, and it creates a lot of chaos in virtual setups. So, and you don't have the physical proximity. Hey, chalo yaar, chai pee ke chalo, let's just resolve it. वो भी नहीं कर सकते. तो हो गया खत्म, half an hour, you are gone somewhere, someone else is gone somewhere. So it's going to create a lot of problems. So yeah, so the last element is the compassion element. So collaboration, resilience, and compassion are three things that I think are quintessential in getting success in such an environment. And Pankaj, of course, can add on to this.
Yeah, very beautifully put, I think. Thanks, Ajay. I think I'll add a few things. So the work ethics change is happening, of course. It's just that, it's been year and a half or a year that all this has been happening. So possibly we haven't really, written about it or codified those, but I see some very clear things improving. And I'm seeing the whole thing as an opportunity and not really as a threat. First thing is that the EQ at the workplace has gone up significantly. The whole emotional quotient has gone up. There's Ajay, I think, talked about compassion. I would again repeat that. Compassion has gone up significantly. You feel for each other much more. Empathy, of course, and collaboration. But the most importantly, I think the most important cornerstone of this whole change from one world to the other is that we are again going back to pure meritocracy. I would, I'm sorry, I'll take a minute more and give you an example of what I sometimes used to dislike about our workplaces. And there is where the diversity and the inclusion piece will also come in. Once one of our lady employees got a lower score on her rating and she complained to the manager. The manager told her, you leave at 6 and all these guys are there up to 7:30 every day, 8 o'clock. And then you expect you to get a better score than them. She, was talking to me and she said, but I work more than all of you. You guys go for cigarette breaks, you go for this, you go for that. You spend less time at work than compared to me. Somewhere, that always used to play in my mind. Today, all that problem is solved. That problem is not there anymore, because end of the day, what you submit as your KPI improvement is what is all. So I think somewhere the biggest change in ethics that is happening, in work ethics that is happening, is that the meritocracy is back. Pure meritocracy. You can't go and do good talk with your boss and try to influence him or her and get your work done. It's all about pure work, I think.
And it's not about how much time. Yeah, it's not about how much time you spend in the office or at your desk. It's about how much you accomplish during those hours.
And I'm personally very passionate about this point, because I always used to wonder, when will a day come when our, all our lady employees, lady colleagues will get an equal platform. And now the time has come that they have an equal platform.
Right, perfect. And in fact, one of our, participants, Shankar, actually talked about something. I just want to read out from his comment. He said, in my opinion, YouTube and Google has become our buddies, where you can just go and ask. When we were in the office, it was just easy to check with colleague sitting next to you that used to generate some conversation and collaboration, right? And probably compassion also to a certain extent, and empathy. So camaraderie was probably built easier that way. This is a challenge that impacts more that requires more collaboration, I think. So that is what he was trying to say. Very interesting, but I like, what both of you covered, which is compassion, empathy, collaboration, changes in KPI, and meritocracy rules. So that is what we always wanted. And just not about, women, of course, take the brunt of it. But even amongst men, the less vociferous or less, talkative people always used to get the wrong end of the, stick, so as to speak, right? But now all those things are gone, and your camaraderie is more on how much you can help your boss look good, right? So while you are sitting at home. So that's great. Now coming back to actually KPIs, Pankaj, you talked about, and then Ajay also talked about compassion. Now these things actually, it's a two-way street, right? So now, what kind of leadership skills will undergo change when I, as a manager, have to manage an employee who is sitting remote, working from home? So KPI is, of course, I can define something for him or her, but how do I keep them motivated? How do I motivate them to say, you can do better? How do I engage with them on a personal level, but then you're remote? Am I making sense?
Yeah, of course.
So this is from the leadership perspective, not from the employee alone perspective, but leadership, what kind of changes the leaders have to bring about their management style? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I think, the days of the coercive leader, the authoritative leader are gone now. So tomorrow, when the book is rewritten, those 10 leadership styles, possibly 2 will go off.
Mm-hmm.
They will go off because they will not exist anymore. So I'll talk about more specific to the manufacturing industry. 20-30% of our leaders are very coercive, very authoritative, and yet they do well in the manufacturing industry because it's all about hard labor and pushing things and getting things done. I think in the times to come that will not work. So I think one thing that I see positive, again, the whole EQ and RQ, as we say, the emotional quotient, the relationship quotient, they are going up. The preponderance of IQ over these two, as used to happen earlier, will cease to exist. I think we will go back to a societal model in the workplace, as we used to be in society, half a century back, where, we're all together collaborating like a family. It's very unfortunate that we haven't taken, we are all away from our, families that we call as family, are, relatives, friends, and we work with somebody for 10 years and yet don't call them family. So, this is something, the other thing that has always bothered me, other than the gender diversity. And as an individual, I feel that, the new world that we're talking about will take care of this. Very interesting, but, this is going to take care of it. Because you are going to be together, and when you're remotely connected, and then it's not about calling each other family or not. It's about being there, because there are different situations that exist today. You have varying work pressures, and I think Ajay somewhere, I forgot the point, but he talked about, I think, the peak loads, and I don't know, or a similar point. I think that is a point that I connected it to this again. That all this will build what? Compassion. That okay, today that person, physically there or not, has got this much to do. So we are all there. When you're physically around, you ignore these things. It's about the appearance. It's about the number of hours you put at the workplace, the number of hours you're explaining it to your boss, and all that. I think somewhere I'm again kind of going back to the same point, but I think back to meritocracy and I think compassion.
Ajay, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I will start with something of a research. If you pick up the current data of top consulting firms and what it says, it's unfortunate. While Pankaj is speaking of what is the need and what is it that we want to see, but unfortunately, what we see in reality is very different. So, and hence the kind of challenges we are seeing in terms of mental wellness, kind of burnout that's happening, attrition rates that we are seeing in a lot of organizations jumping up, a lot of people just quitting because they just have to quit. There's nothing else to do, because the way last 1.5 years has been, I mean, if I were to calculate it from last March to today, has been very bad. So I would say that the pandemic actually exposed leadership to the core, and the kind of, or rather the lack of it in the organizations to the core. So seeing that, and to Pankaj's point in terms of what is needed, it's not that the leaders don't understand. I mean, they are matured people, but I think what could be a solution, I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying as a consultant here, is possibly we are not segregating our audience. We also need to understand that the workforce today is not the workforce of what we used to deal with, be it manufacturing or any other sector. There's a lot of differentiation in the workforce demographics itself. Because I am dealing with different kind of workforce too, be it my client side or be it my own workforce, my team who's working with me, who are like just youngsters who are passed out of college. Their mentality, the need is very different. How do I engage them, to your point, Bhaskar, and to ensure that I keep them regularly motivated while I'm not meeting them? I'm not probably taking them out for a dinner or a party or something, which is something they really enjoy, being there. So few things that leaders could focus on, which I'm saying from my personal experience, for a lot of young population, is specific to learning. So they're very eager to grow, and trust me, you can't stop them. So if they choose to move, they will choose to move. And they don't care, to be very honest. So, but then the interesting part, which I'm noticing in the behavior of millennials, is should you allow them or empower them and give them their individuality, there is a high chance they will be with you. for the respect that you are offering them. So I think respect is what I would want to put very, very categorically and very strongly. I think leaders need to understand that it's a virtual scenario, whatever scenario you're operating on, irrespective. I think respect is something that you need to have as a culture within the organization for each other, irrespective of what level you are in. You may be a CEO and the other person may be an analyst, but that respect is an existential importance in the organization. So that's one element. The second element is, according to me, communication. So if I were to ask people in this panel, how many times have you actually reached out to your team and actually reached out to people in a genuine manner? So communication and genuinity, two words, where you have actually asked them what are they going through, how are they feeling, and or if it's performance, given them a proper feedback in terms of what is not happening properly, and understood as to why things are not happening. Please understand that 1.5 years is a very different scenario for people. It's not the normal scenario. There's a lot of grief, there's a lot of anxiety. Mental states are very different for different. Someone is going through some COVID stress. Someone has some family member sick, and trust me, all of us are going through that some form or the other. Are we passionate towards that? Are we understanding that and then approaching my team? So communication and genuineness. It's not like okay, well, hi everyone. I hope everybody's okay, and everything is fine with all of you, and then start. Okay, so what's the revenues today? So it doesn't show genuineness. Where if you change that to actually going through, okay, what happened? You last time you mentioned your father was not well. How is he today? And then probably start. And in the team, why not? It's not necessarily you need to do it one-to-one. So I think these are some points, and I can go on for these are some personal points which I felt I wanted to share.
Very well said. Very well said.
We are not looking into it. It's not that we don't know. It's just that we are not practicing it. And possibly in the interest of just getting, I don't know what, just running through business and businesses are doing well. Trust me. And Pankaj is and manufacturing and steel organizations are doing extremely well. I work in the manufacturing sector, and all my clients are doing very well in terms of business. So what stops us from giving that time to our team and just communicating properly with people? So and as leaders, let's start being more authentic.
I think authenticity is what is the key.
These are some of the points, Bhaskar. I just felt I should share. I know I'm probably sharing little hard points, but I'm with a little bit of reality.
I agree with you, both of you, because when for example, when we were in physical proximity of work culture, right? So when we were working together, collaboration, for example, was always thought to be something, just sitting next to you and trying to help each other out. But now it is a lot more involved, because now communication is also in the mix, right? So when I'm sitting next to you and let's say helping each other out, it is a lot easier. I can just move the mouse and show it to you how it is done, right? But now I don't have control on the mouse. Then I have to instruct you over the phone or whatever to how to do it. So I think all of these now have become a lot more interlinked, all these skills, being compassionate, being, having respect for each other, and knowing in a remote work environment that the other person may not have the right infrastructure to work from home, right? So that is just one part of it. So or they may have a small baby at home, right? Or an elderly person at home that they need to take care of, or whatever the reasons might be. So I fully agree with you, but now all those things have become interlinked. So for example, me, when I used to go to work, for me, I could compartmentalize. Once I'm at work, I never used to think about home. And when I'm at home, I never, beyond a certain point, never thought about work. But now that line has blurred totally, right? So that I think makes it very difficult for people to cope with. But last but not the least on that one is the learning. I think whether you're a leader, a manager, or an individual contributor, learning is something we all have to continuously do it. There is no to stay relevant. There is no exception to that rule. But it has probably become more important because you may not get the help of a colleague when you want it, right? So you have to depend on digital methods to find the answer by yourself. So I'm hoping that it will actually create in people a sense of what I call sense of intellectual curiosity, to go and explore what is out there, as opposed to just asking, or rather than being just fed, right? So we're just running short of time, but I just want to wind up with one. I think we have touched upon quite a few things, but just as a wrap up, how do you guys think the future would look like, let's say next 1 year or maybe 2 years, both the skills perspective as well as any thoughts to wrap up the conversation?
So I think the flexibility at work is something that is acknowledged, and I see that as a silver lining in the cloud, because the work, I obviously always grappled with what Ajay talked about, and it has, the pandemic has taken its toll in terms of all those people who actually decided to quit, they couldn't carry on because there were peak workloads and all that. But again, the silver lining in the cloud is that we have begun to acknowledge the quality of leadership in these times, and we have also understood that leadership is key, and it is not just infrastructure, processes, but the people that are very important. And when you talk about people, it's about leadership now. So going forward, I see leadership, people, as the key driver to business, as opposed to again, I get biased because I talk from a manufacturing standpoint, but the whole of manufacturing industry in India has been very infrastructure focused. I will build this, I will build that, I will put in 50,000 crores, I'll put 10,000 crores, I'll put a new cement plant, I'll put a new steel plant, I'll put a new aluminum plant, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, 4 new pharma plants. I think somewhere we lost our focus on people, and we still feel that the best businesses are the ones that are driven by people, not by infrastructure and processes. There are a host of companies I know of, I don't want to really take their names. They're very process centric. The Deming Prize winning companies and all that, who run their business on process. Then there are a group of companies who are very, investment oriented companies, and they know how to make more cycles of the money. So they are very infrastructure focused. 1 million ton, 3,000 meter cube, that's the metric. The time has come when these companies actually move to a people mode, and then they make leaders rather than those assets who drive these companies. Not theoretical at all. This is something that I've been feeling myself. And these were the times when we saw differences between those leaders who said, yes, we are there, do it, there's no problem. We can have a loss, it's fine. And then there were those who said, you cannot make a loss, let people be killed. Don't make a 1 ton of loss. So that's where the difference came out. People who are leaders who cared for people, who took out benevolent schemes. These are the times when all these leaders came to the fore. So I think quality of leadership and quality of people will, in my opinion, have preponderance over the quality of assets and infrastructure and processes that we build, which the past half century, 50 years, we have been focusing on. So my take is that. All right. I think Ajay, you can.
Thanks, Pankaj. Ajay?
Yeah, so I'll just break it up into 2 parts. One is for the individual. Clearly, from an individual standpoint, I think people need to evaluate where they are first, be it whichever role, including me, you, all of us. And we need to see where we are. How is my career going to change, or what is it that I'm actually looking at doing? I think a lot of them in the last 1.5 years, and other people who were doing it earlier, it was already there. But for a lot of them, the last 1.5 years, what I have seen is a lot of clarity has come in terms of what am I interested to do, what satisfies me, what makes me happy. So I think that's the question I would ask everyone to ask themselves: what makes you happy as an individual, and work towards that, whatever makes you happy. And the second element is from an organization standpoint, and Pankaj covered it so beautifully. I mean, leadership is the most important thing. We have seen what has come out in the last, it is, like I said, leadership is exposed to its core in the last 1.5 years, and organizations are now, and like Pankaj said, I agree. People have started to acknowledge there is changes that have started to step in, occurring. Organizations which are, or like, in our parlance, we say path-breaking organizations will take that stance and will move in that direction, where they will say people are important to me and I don't care. Even if I make that 1 ton loss, doesn't matter. People are more important. So there are organizations which will do that, but there will be organizations which will continue to do what they're doing as well. And then it's a choice for people. Like Pankaj said, it's flexibility. I can always choose to work with any organization I want to. So on an individual front, clearly, focus on what's your happiness, your purpose, what do you want to do, and as an organization as well, on the purpose, overall purpose of the organization, as well as the leadership area of the organization.
Perfect. Very well
that's my
explained.
interest. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many things that we can actually talk about, and I have a page full of questions and notes that obviously we couldn't get through. But both of your experience and your suggestions and your guidance, I think it's people listening today would find it very valuable. Some of the things that you guys mentioned was that is still ringing in my head. Obviously, compassion, empathy, collaboration, learning, mutual respect, meritocracy rules, KPIs are going to change. And the last one that you mentioned, Ajay, which is about introspection for happiness, right? So I'm actually probably a prime example myself for that one. So last year and a half that I've been at home, I've been trying to figure out what makes me happy, right? So, and I found those, so I started to pursue some of the hobbies that I never thought I would be able to. So I'm pretty sure that people listening here would actually take that seriously and look at what makes them happy. And it goes on to also say that not everybody probably is meant for a full-time workforce. They may decide to be a freelancer, for example, right? So that is what probably they would enjoy doing a lot more, doing multiple types of work, as opposed to getting stuck with one type of role or one type of work being in an organization. So I think those are the kind of things that people have to do an introspection and find that right balance between work life. Earlier it was work life, now it is life work, because now you're working from home. So life comes first, and then the work probably not in terms of priority, but you guys know what I'm saying. So it's not about work-life balance anymore, but life-work balance. So thank you very much, Pankaj and Ajay. I hope people listening got lots of insights from your valuable experience. And then I hand it over to Devika. Or Rekha, actually.
Thanks, Bhaskar. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
and
Pankaj.
a lot of learning, and I'm so happy that a lot of things which Ajay said, a lot of things which Pankaj said, and what Bhaskar led the conversations into resonated a lot with me. So I'm really, really very, very pleased that my thought process is being echoed by quite a few people. So one small request, if all of you can please turn on your camera, I'll take a quick screenshot before I hand it over to Rekha for the closing of the session. Thank you. I guess the others are camera shy, or it's just coming on. Thank you. Right. So there I go. Shift and screen. Yes. Not a problem. Okay. And Rekha, over to you for the vote of thanks and for the rest of the information.
Sure. So thank you, Pankaj, Ajay, and Bhaskar for this very engaging session. It was wonderful to get this key insights, so many learnings from manufacturing industries that can be, later percolated to other industries as well. But being digital seems to be the way forward. Keep, driving performance, productivity while creating value, but at the same time, not forgetting to be more collaborative, compassionate, being resilient, emotionally more intelligent, all this seems to be, very, very insightful and so very valuable session. Thank you, Bhaskar, for eliciting out, these insights from two industry icons, very well managed. And thank you, audience, for some wonderful comments and questions. What we would also like to say is, like, amongst the audience, if there is a great speaker who want to kind of feature into one of our webinars, please do write into us. Or if one of you can recommend somebody who's a great speaker, because webinars is something which is going to be something which we are going to feature every month. So thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening and a very happy weekend. Stay safe and stay happy.
Yeah, and since I always have the last word, just wanted to let you know that we will be circulating this conversation because to a large group of people, almost about 25K people connects that we have in our ecosystem. So it's going to give us some give the people some much needed clarity on how to manage people, what is going to be the future, how are you going to measure performance, etc. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rekha.
Bye.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
thank you so much, Ajay. Bye. And thank you, dear participants. Thank you. Bye.